A girl named Piper is waiting for her stepbrother to pick her up after school. She tries to talk to other teenagers, but they feel uncomfortable around her. Soon, her stepbrother Andy arrives to take her home. Piper is partially blind, able to see only shapes and light. At home, Piper suddenly panics and calls Andy. She hears her father fall in the bathroom, but the door is locked. Andy breaks it open and finds their father lying dead on the floor. Since they have no guardian and are still underage, Piper and Andy are taken by child services. The caseworker is a woman named Wendy. She decides to place Piper with a foster mother named Laura while Andy is sent to a different supervision unit. Although Piper and Andy don't want to be separated, Wendy explains her reasons. Andy has a history of trouble, and Laura once had problems caring for kids like him. Still, Wendy gives Andy a chance to stay with Piper on one condition: he must behave for 3 months. Andy agrees. Sometime later, they arrive at their foster mother's house, Laura. As they step inside, Laura greets them kindly. Looking around, Andy notices that the carpets in the house are taped down, something that usually helps the visually impaired avoid tripping. He asks if it's for Piper, but Laura quietly explains it was once for her own child, who had drowned and passed away. While Laura takes a phone call from Wendy, Andy and Piper look around the backyard. There, they see an empty swimming pool, the same place where Laura's child had drowned. But something strange catches their eyes: a young boy without clothes standing near the pool. Laura later introduces him as Oliver, another foster child with no family. She also explains that Oliver suffers from selective mutism, a trauma that started after her own child drowned. While unpacking his things, Andy notices a strange white chalk line on the floor that catches his attention. But he decides not to ask Laura about it. Later in his room, Andy texts a friend, saying that his new foster brother Oliver is weird. A moment later, Laura enters and asks if it's true that Andy plans to apply for guardianship of Piper in 3 months, once he turns 18. Andy says yes. When Piper calls for him from outside, Laura takes a quick look at his phone. Andy gets angry but quickly apologizes for yelling. Still, deep down, he feels Laura should respect his privacy. That night, after making sure Piper was asleep, Laura quietly went outside with Oliver to the shed in the backyard. From his room, Andy happened to see them. The next morning, Andy woke up shocked to find that he had wet his pants. He quickly washed them so no one would notice. Later, they went to their father's funeral. But something disturbing happened. After everyone had left, Laura secretly opened the coffin and cut some hair from their father's corpse. Meanwhile, at the house, Oliver, who had been locked inside, broke a window and escaped. He went to the shed, the same place he had gone with Laura the night before. But the door was locked tight. On the way back from the funeral, Laura told them that a funeral was not about mourning, but about celebration. She encouraged them to have fun. When they got home, they partied and drank, while Oliver silently watched from outside. Once everyone was drunk and asleep, Laura quietly went to the bathroom carrying a container. She filled it with her own urine. Then she poured it on Andy's pants. The truth was revealed. Andy hadn't wet himself the other day. It was Laura's trap. After that, Laura took Andy's phone and went through it. She then deleted the photo of Oliver from his gallery. At the same time, Laura spotted Oliver outside, holding a cat in his arms. His body was covered in cuts and blood. She took him inside and began bathing him. While washing him, Laura started asking strange questions. Staring at him, she said, "Are you in there? Is this a part of him? How can I believe it if I can't see you?" Suddenly, the next morning, Andy woke up confused, wondering why he had wet the bed again. He tried to clean it himself like before, but this time Laura stopped him. She insisted on washing his sheets and told Piper that Andy had wet the bed, which embarrassed him deeply. Laura was deliberately creating the illusion of Andy's weakness, using it to strengthen her control over him. Afterward, Laura took Piper out shopping, leaving Andy alone at the house with Oliver. Because of the trauma of his father's death in the bathroom, Andy chose to shower outside using the water tap. At the same time, Oliver was watching him from his bedroom window. A fly buzzed around Oliver's room, and he hit the glass, making a sound that Andy could hear. Andy looked up and thought Oliver was waving at him. In reality, Oliver was hunting the fly and then ate it alive. When Andy tried to enter Oliver's room, the door was locked. He forced it open with a knife and invited Oliver to come out for a meal. Since Oliver couldn't speak, Andy handed him a pen and paper, telling him that if he wanted fruit, he had to write it down. Andy then gave him the fruit, but Oliver grabbed it with his knife. And when Andy tried to hand him a plate, Oliver bit down on the knife instead. Panicked after seeing Oliver bite the knife, Andy tried to take him to the hospital, but Oliver fought back violently when they got close to the white chalk line outside.
Come on, just follow me, it's okay. Come on!
Moments later, Laura and Piper returned. Laura was furious to find Oliver outside the chalk line. She quickly dragged Oliver back inside while Andy took Piper into the house. In her room, Laura was watching a tutorial video from Russia about dark magic rituals. As she studied it intently, Oliver suddenly came to his senses and grew terrified. He asked who Laura really was. Laura immediately turned up the music loud so Andy and Piper couldn't hear, while she kept following the steps from the video. Once Oliver had calmed down, Laura stepped out of the room and angrily confronted Andy, telling him to respect her privacy. Then she took Piper into her bedroom. Inside, Laura pulled out strands of Piper's father's hair, meant to be food for Oliver. Later, Piper went out to look for Andy. She didn't notice the white line on the ground. From above, it was clear. The white line formed a circle around Laura's entire house, a boundary Oliver could never cross. While Andy was taking a shower, he suddenly felt something behind him.
She'll die in the rain.
Hey. Hey.
When he woke up, he was already in the hospital. At the same time, heavy rain was pouring down. The swimming pool at Laura's house slowly began to fill with water. It was clear from her expression, Laura had been waiting for this rain, and she enjoyed every moment of it. A little later, Piper went to Laura's room, worried about Andy since she had no idea what had happened to him. Laura was watching an old video of Kathy swimming. Soon after, Laura went to visit Andy at the hospital. She told him he had a concussion and needed further observation. Watching the rain fall, Andy grew anxious about his sister. He remembered his father's spirit warning him that Piper would die when the rain came. Desperate, Andy begged Laura not to let Piper leave the house. Laura promised she wouldn't let Piper go outside. At the house, Laura deliberately took Piper outside to play in the rain. Then she led her to the shed. Inside, Laura gave Piper some old clothes that once belonged to Kathy, her dead daughter. Then she revealed something. She guided Piper's hand to touch a cold object inside the freezer. Calmly, Laura said, "It's just meat." But in reality, inside that freezer was Kathy's corpse, the body Laura had been hiding all along. The next day, Andy insisted on coming home. Laura reluctantly picked him up, even though she didn't want to. That night, while everyone was asleep, Laura once again watched the ritual tutorial. It became clear. The ritual was meant to bring Kathy back to life. That was the real reason Laura kept her daughter's body hidden in the freezer. The ritual required 3 bodies, and Laura already had them. First was Kathy's body, the one to be brought back. Second was Oliver, chosen as the vessel for the summoned demon. And last was Piper, meant to become Kathy's new body. In the tutorial video, the ritual was shown as a complete success. That night, Laura sprayed Andy's cologne all over herself. Then she quietly entered Piper's room while she was asleep. Suddenly, Laura struck Piper's face hard, waking her up in pain. Piper didn't know who hit her, but she could smell Andy's cologne lingering in the air. The next morning, Andy woke up and was shocked to see Piper's bruised eye. Laura quickly created a story, making it look like Andy had hit Piper. She even claimed that Andy's father used to beat him, and that Andy was now doing the same to Piper. Laura was deliberately trying to break the bond between the siblings. Outside the house, Andy saw Olive. His mouth was covered in blood, and his body was soaked from the rain. Andy sensed something was wrong and tried to take a picture. When he zoomed in on the photo, it became clear part of Olive's body was already taken over by the demon. Laura tried to snatch Andy's phone. When Andy pushed her away and she fell, Laura screamed as if he had just hit her. She managed to grab the phone and smashed it to pieces. Andy was furious with Laura's tricks, but he didn't hit her. Instead, he punched the wall in anger. Andy begged Piper to leave the house with him, but Piper refused. She still chose to stay with Laura. Feeling that something was wrong, Andy went to the child service office. When he arrived, the receptionist asked him to wait for a while. In the lobby, Andy noticed a missing child poster. The boy's name was Connor, and Andy realized it was actually Oliver who had been kidnapped. When Andy met Wendy, he found out that Laura had already called her first. Laura claimed that Andy had hit both her and Piper. Andy immediately denied it, saying Laura was lying. He even revealed that Laura was the one who kidnapped Oliver, but Wendy didn't believe him. To her, that was impossible. Laura had worked as a child service counselor for 20 years and was also her close friend. To convince Wendy, Andy insisted on taking her to Laura's house. Meanwhile, Laura took Piper to a blind football match, a sport Piper really loved. After that, Laura went home first, while Piper stayed behind to play. When Laura arrived, the house was already a mess. The demon inside Oliver had gone wild. It seemed endlessly hungry and desperate for human flesh. Oliver attacked Laura and managed to bite into her arm, but Laura broke free and quickly hid inside her room. Oliver even tried to eat wood. After realizing it wasn't food, he turned to eating his own skin instead. Soon after Laura came out of her room, she saw Oliver outside, just standing still under the rain. Laura then drew a circle on the window with blood. It immediately caught Oliver's attention and calmed him down. After that, she led him to the shed. One step of the ritual required Oliver to eat Kathy's body, and this time, Laura allowed him to do it. On the way, Andy called Piper, telling her that when they were kids, their father often hit him. Out of jealousy over the way their father treated Piper, Andy admitted he had once hit her. Andy felt deeply sorry, but this time he was certain that it was Laura who had hit Piper. What he didn't know was that the person listening to the call wasn't Piper. It was Laura, silently eavesdropping. Hearing that Wendy was coming, Laura quickly cleaned up her house, which was a complete mess. Time passed, and Andy and Wendy arrived at Laura's house. Wendy asked Andy to wait in the car while she talked to Laura. As Wendy and Laura checked each room, Andy sneaked in through the backyard. There, he noticed dead chickens scattered around. Suspicious, Andy decided to check the shed, the most suspicious place. The door was locked, but Andy managed to force the padlock open. Finding no evidence against Laura, Wendy ended her inspection. But before leaving, Laura touched her face with her bloody hands, making Wendy uneasy. At the same time, Wendy heard Andy screaming outside. Laura immediately became defensive, claiming she was doing something for Andy. Wendy thought Laura had lost her mind and pushed her. Wendy stepped outside and Andy quickly showed her Oliver in the shed. Seeing him, Wendy immediately realized how dangerous Laura was. They planned to leave as fast as possible, but Laura wasn't going to let them go easily. After everything was settled, Laura picked up Piper. At home, Piper heard a voice calling her from upstairs. She went to find the source, but it wasn't Andy. It was Oliver, possessed by the demon. Piper touched Oliver and immediately realized that it wasn't Andy. Soon after, Laura appeared and said that the person in front of Piper was Oliver. Piper was confused because she had heard Andy's voice coming from the same room. Even though she couldn't see clearly, Piper could smell the strong scent of blood. Piper asked about Oliver's hair, and Laura claimed it was thick and curly. But Piper had already touched Oliver's head earlier, so she knew Laura was lying. When Laura was distracted, Piper tried to escape and managed to lock herself in the bathroom. On the floor, Piper felt something unusual. She checked it and touched Andy's teeth with braces. From that, Piper immediately recognized that it was indeed Andy. Laura managed to break into the bathroom. Piper asked what had happened to Andy, and Laura replied that he had an accident. She then said that she needed Piper's help to bring Kathy back. Piper tried to escape but ran into a pole and lost consciousness. Laura then dragged Piper to the swimming pool where Kathy had drowned. It seemed that one of the ritual's requirements was that the victim had to die in the same way. At the same time, Oliver appeared. His belly was swollen as if he were pregnant. The three of them entered the pool, which was already fairly full. It seemed the demon had fully taken over Oliver's body, ready to complete the ritual and transfer into Piper's body. Laura then submerged Piper. Piper regained consciousness, tried to fight back, and screamed for help. But Laura was alone by the pool. Piper didn't give up. She clawed at Laura's face with all her strength. Piper screamed, "Mama," and it reminded Laura of Kathy. Laura couldn't bring herself to kill Piper as she looked so much like Kathy. Instead, Laura hugged Piper. But Piper no longer trusted Laura and quickly ran away. Laura didn't chase her, but Oliver still tried to pursue Piper to eat her. Piper struck Oliver in the stomach, causing him pain and breaking free. Oliver tried to chase again, but Piper had already stepped out of the ritual circle. Piper called for help from a passerby who naturally alerted the police. Oliver saw a poster of himself that Andy had brought to the house. When he crossed the ritual line, Oliver screamed in pain, as much of his body had been taken over by the demon. Later that night, the police raided Laura's house following the report from the person who helped Piper. There, they found Oliver, badly wounded but still alive. He had regained his consciousness and revealed that his real name was Connor. Meanwhile, Laura was found dead in the middle of the swimming pool, clutching Kathy's corpse. With that, the film came to an end. From Bring Her Back, we learn that manipulation and obsession can destroy lives, but courage and cleverness can help you survive. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss our next thrilling stories. And see you in my next video. Bye-bye.